Have you ever wondered how your sales performance compares against your competitors and peers? The B2B Sales Benchmark Report provides the definitive guide to what success looks like in 2021. See how you compare in terms of win rate, sales cycle, average deal value, relationships, and engagement. You can see the results and get the full report at ebster.com/B2B-sales-benchmarks. This is Sales Ops Demystified, the #1 most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales operations onto the show to deconstruct the why, what, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebster, the leading customer engagement platform for Salesforce. Hello, and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. We're joined by Simon Gilks, who has extensive experience both in sales, 12 years, and also in sales operations at companies such as GoCardless,
Yep.
Xero,
Yep.
and we literally just said it.
Sage.
So fintech, SaaS world. Simon, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we were actually just chatting, and I didn't normally ask this question first, about your sales experience. And you were telling me about one deal that you did that was, it sounds quite extreme. If you'd like to share that with the audience before we kick off.
Yeah, I think so. I spent 12 years in sales, did many roles, and one of the roles, which was probably the toughest, but I learned the most, was selling corporate hospitality. Literally cold calling straight from a yellow pages, making in excess of 200 cold calls a day. And I was selling at the time 4 tickets to the Monaco Grand Prix with private flights, watching from a private yacht. Phoned a company in Ireland, and the man said he'll phone me back, which took me by surprise because it was very expensive. And he phoned me back and agreed to take the tickets, and it was £60,000 for 4 tickets to the Monaco Grand Prix. And when I asked which clients he was taking, it was him and 3 of his friends had sort of clubbed together for a lads' weekend, which...
What a sale.
Seems quite a nice way to spend £15,000 on a lads' weekend. I'm not sure if I could get that signed off at home, though.
That sounds amazing, but it sounds like a brutally hard role, like trying to sell that from God. Shifting now, how did you move from that sales experience into sales operations?
I suppose after 12 years in sales, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to go down the sort of normal sales manager route. I wanted to try something different.
And why was that?
Be honest, I don't think I was probably mature enough to be a sales manager at the time. And I was I was used to being in control of my own destiny and earning my own commission. I didn't want to then be reliant on 6 people, 7 people to hit their number for me to earn my commission. And plus, I've been doing it for 12 years. I wanted to try something completely different. So I moved into product marketing originally, and I spent 2 years as a product marketing manager, covering sort of UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, and South Africa. So I got to travel a load and do something completely different. And it was then that my managing director said, do you want to do sales ops? I'd never even heard of it at that point.
Which company was this?
So that was actually a company called RS Components before Xero. And we were setting up a sort of sales operations function. They just started to create it. And yeah, he sort of explained what it was. And I finally realized actually what I was doing in product marketing was so closely aligned with what sales operations and enablement was all about that I sort of, took a leap of faith, jumped over, and 7 years later, I'm still doing it and really enjoy it.
And you had also said before the interview that this was probably the biggest sales ops team I've ever heard of.
Yeah. We because it was a big company. We were 7,000 people globally as a company. And they sort of went around the business and you do a bit of sales ops, so do you. They pulled it all together. There was 160 people in sales operations. There's absolutely not 160 people in sales operations there anymore. Mm-hmm. But actually, it was about pulling the resources and working through who was, who wasn't, and what was sales operations.
Sure. And then from there, you moved to Xero.
Yeah.
Cool. As a sales ops role.
Yeah, I went there. They didn't have sales operations, so they were pretty early stage. They employed like 88 people in the UK at the time.
Yeah.
And I went in to set up sales operations for them, which after about a year, we sort of merged into sort of a commercial / revenue operations model. And I ran that for them for EMEA for 3 years.
What are your thoughts on this shift towards revenue operation?
So personally, I'm a big fan.
Why?
I think that too many businesses have too many silos, and there's always a tension between sort of revenue generating functions like sales and marketing mainly. And I think it's healthy to have a tension. I've been to so many meetings where you turn up and you argue over a number. Yeah. You debate whose number's right, why my number's right. And actually, by putting it together as revenue operations, you have a holistic view. You have a single source of the truth that's looking at every aspect of how does a company generate revenue.
I totally agree with you, Simon, but my problem here is that we named this podcast 9 months ago, Sales Ops. And then just as we named this, now there's this new thing. Anyway, cool. So then you set up the sales operations team at Xero and then moved on.
Yeah.
Cool. And then did you set up another sales operations?
No, I went to Sage. So I think most people know Sage. Yeah, 14,000 people. Globally, actually, our sales ops team was bigger than the one at RS Components.
Oh, really?
But again, it was a similar, like sales ops didn't exist at Sage. They were 30 years old. It was only set up about 6 months before I joined.
Yeah.
And they did the same exercise. They went around the business and pulled everyone together and ended up with 300 people. But, it was because Sage was so big and so complex because it had grown through acquisition. So then we sort of looked at how do we sort of build out, what is the right sales operation structure. But do you know what? I missed that craziness of a startup and a scale up being in a sort of big 14,000 person company. So I spent a year there before sort of moving on to GoCardless.
And when you joined GoCardless, how many sales ops people and how many sales people?
So at GoCardless, when I joined, there were sort of 2 people in sales operations, but neither of them, that was both of them, their first ever role in sales operations.
Joe, I believe.
Joe Gates, yeah.
So Google Joe Gates episode, you can see Joe's interview, who's now at Spendesk.
Yeah. Yeah, so Joe was an SDR at GoCardless, which was his first sort of proper job post-university in a commercial world. So he was an SDR, and then he transitioned to GoCardless into sales ops. And then we've got another guy, Chris, that had just moved over from the US and had sort of done some territory management and design work previously and various other sort of analytical roles and ended up in sales operations. So my role was to go in and sort of build out a sort of a more robust, more scalable function as GoCardless was scaling so quickly.
And then right now, how many people in the sales ops team?
So including myself, we've got 7 in sales ops and sales enablement.
And roughly how many sales reps are you supporting?
We're supporting at the moment, I would say, around sort of 90. Because we sort of cover the SDRs, the MDRs, the AEs, partnerships as well. Cool. And we sort of support many other functions around the business, but that's our core scope.
So we're talking about like a 1 to 12.5 ratio there. Yeah. Do you think that's about right, or are you looking to hire some more?
We're looking to hire some more people, ideally next year, yeah. To offer us a couple of aspects. I mean, because we cover the enablement side as well, because we hire so many people, we didn't want to bring in a dedicated trainer to work with our sales enablement manager in the function. And as we start to do more complex deals, we need to bring in someone to support from a deal desk perspective and really help us sort of drive the contracts through the business and take some of the sort of strain off the sales guys, but also the lawyers and finance and sort of pull that together as a deal desk function.
Nice. Can we shift now to the tech stack that you're using in GoCardless?
Yeah. Most things. I think we're a typical startup scale up where you don't have any money.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you've got a bit of money, so you can buy everything. And because there's probably a sales ops function didn't really exist, everyone that wanted something just went and bought whatever they wanted, or normally just put it on a company credit card or this, that, and the other. And we have a lot of technology, so one of my tasks is about decommissioning that, but we base ourselves on the Salesforce platform, essentially. Okay. Salesforce is our sort of hub, and we use, as much that is native Salesforce for us. So I think some of our key pieces of software are sort of, obviously, Salesforce New Voice Media from a telephony perspective. At the moment, we use sort of Yesware for our sort of email campaign and sort of sequencing. And then we use sort of Einstein analytics. We're just launching partner communities. So we sort of really embedded in Salesforce and everything else that sort of links to it.
Got it. And I assume your team are responsible for the data quality in Salesforce.
Yes.
What are you currently doing?
So what have we done previously? It's not much. What are we doing now? So essentially, we rebuilt Salesforce from the literally bottoms up to a brand new version of Salesforce, because when Salesforce was implemented, like in many startups and scale-ups, it probably wasn't done with the sort of future in mind. It was there to serve a purpose at that moment in time. So we didn't have great processes to enable, high quality data. We had too many fields, too many duplicates of fields. We didn't really have anyone monitoring and tracking it.
So it was a mess.
It was a real mess, yeah. So we spent a few months with some consultants from scratch, rebuilt it to enable us that. We're now sort of working on a big sort of data project in Q3 and Q4 to ensure that our data is integrated across all of our platforms, including a core product that is GoCardless, to enable to have sort of a complete sync of everything so it remains accurate. And then partnering with people like D&B and other sort of data providers to ensure that it's always up to date, it's accurate. And actually changing the culture that it doesn't sit with sales ops, it's everybody is accountable for data quality.
Yes.
Because everyone looks at me and says, data's rubbish. Well, I'm not putting the data in there, so we need to create that culture and train and give people the guidance and make it easy for them to drive sort of data accuracy.
And that leads very nicely onto the next few questions, is about your relationship with the sales team. How would you go about making them do something extra to improve data quality if they're it's not getting me paid?
I think so. One of our core values as a business is start with why.
Nice. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Did you get given that when you did?
No, we don't. I've read it though, but yeah, it's a great book. But we believe that we should always start with why. As a company, we really stand by our values. So I think by ensuring that we start with why and explain why we're doing it and get people's buy-in and engagement and actually talk to them about the value that it's going to add to them. And, data accuracy is really easy to prove and demonstrate why it's important, because I can really quickly turn that into a number in terms of how that's going to impact their commission, because I'm going to reduce their sales cycle. I'm going to increase their close rate because I'm going to point them in the right direction of who they're going to go and talk to next, rather than just sit there sort of playing around in rubbish data, trying to find something that they realize it's a duplicate or they're speaking to the wrong person. So that's quite easy. But I think actually for us, it really starts at our recruitment process and strategy by hiring the right people. So ensuring that they're ready for the sort of craziness of a startup and scale up and the constant change. Things don't stay still for long. When I joined a year ago, it's a different world now. So by hiring people that are adaptable, prepared to change and understand the journey we're going on, it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue so far. And we made some big changes and I haven't had a huge amount of pushback. There's always edge cases, but...
Because you hired the right people?
I think so, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about making them more productive? What's something you've done in the last few months?
I suppose we're trying to do lots. I think productivity and improving that is so dependent business to business. What makes us more productive will be completely different as somewhere else. But some of the things that we're doing or have been doing is around sort of propensity to close and planning and giving them direction. So sort of looking for lookalikes in our activities and our accounts and our opportunities. What works, what doesn't work? Where does our value proposition really fit? And sort of then pointing them in the direction of where to go, and then aligning sales and marketing, which then drives that productivity to reduce the need for them to sort of go out there and do a huge amount of planning themselves. We want to take the planning away from them so they can focus on the closing of the deals, which is where they get paid, right?
And they're just like the robot.
No, I don't think, our deals are pretty complex because of what we do.
Yeah.
So, they need to be focused on that rather than on who do I phone.
Got it.
And actually, one of the biggest things that's driven a massive increase in our ability to close is we used to have a sort of a combined SDR and MDR function. So 1 minute they would do an outbound, then they would deal with an inbound, then they would deal with web chat.
Yeah.
We've actually separated that into specialist functions. We have a team dealing with the inbound activities and a team dealing with the outbound. And aligning that outbound team with the AEs and the verticals they support has really driven a massive increase in high quality pipeline. So actually, we're already seeing that the pipeline's better. We've got a better close rate and we're talking to the right customers. Nice. So it's been a big win for the AEs.
That's nice. quick question that's not on the normal script. You were selling the virtues of revenue operations earlier, but I have a problem here because you're currently running the sales operations.
Yes.
So elaborate.
Yeah, look, as a business, it's something that I've proposed to the business. We've proposed it, we've discussed it, but actually at this moment in time, because of how much there is on our agenda, because of the growth rates we're going through, because of the international expansion, we've decided to keep them sort of separate at the moment to really apply that sort of specialist focus to that area so we don't get distracted, because I think it is easy to get distracted. And when we're aiming for huge growth rates, hiring, 150 people in a year, when we're opening in, new markets. Since I've joined, we opened, France, Germany, and the US in the last 12 months. There's so much going on that actually we're keeping it separate for now, but working really, really closely together.
Cool. Is there a marketing ops team?
There is a small, emerging marketing ops team. We hired a marketing ops manager this week.
Cool, yeah.
He started on Tuesday, and we have a small sort of subset of people. So we've got a person in the team that looks after sort of the marketing tech stack, so sort of centered around Pardot. We've got an analyst in the team, we've got a manager and some other resource. And then from the other sort of function that I would normally position under revenue operations is the sort of customer success, that onboarding, support and enablement.
So is there a support ops team?
No, there's a couple of people that are doing that, but I wouldn't say there's a sort of a built-out dedicated team, because they live in Salesforce, which is sat in sales operations. So it's sort of, they don't really need the same level of team, but they do have an analyst that is diving into the insights of their data on a day-to-day basis.
And so do you report into the VP of sales?
I report to the Chief Revenue Officer.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Who, in our world, so we have a CMO and a CRO, but the Chief Revenue Officer is responsible for all of the sort of sales, whether that's lead development, the closing of the deals, or the partnerships.
Got it. And final question on structure. Do the SDRs and MDRs sit within marketing or sales?
They sit within sales.
Cool.
Yeah, so there was a debate, but they sit within the sales function, and, we're sort of working towards a strategy to build out 3 global hubs, sort of a UK, an Asia Pacific, and an Americas hub to support everyone globally.
Sure. Moving on to onboarding, now you mentioned 150 people in a year. What have you done in the onboarding process that's like increased ramp time?
So I think actually the biggest impact we've had in onboarding, especially as we're going internationally, is we fly everyone to London for 2 weeks.
Nice.
So even the Australian team, the US team, there's a girl sat 2 desks down from me who's sort of technical sales, pre-sales consultant in the US, and she's here for 2 weeks, just to ensure that they understand who we are, why we are, what we are, and they go back with that culture and understanding. I think it's really difficult to sell a product or a company if you don't really understand who they are. It's expensive and it's painful flying someone over from Australia for 2 weeks, but it's really important. So I think that has a big impact because it allows them to get up to speed really quickly. Because when you're remote, especially in a different time zone, you don't have the ability just to walk around the corner and ask someone a question or go and chase legal about signing off on a contract. So you need to come and build those relationships while you're here. So I think that was a big win for us. And hiring a sales enablement manager to focus on this now and actually look at our entire onboarding process. And we're looking at building out sort of an LMS platform to accelerate onboarding, but then take it to the next level and almost sort of create a sales university for career development, so that their sort of journey doesn't stop after 8 weeks, essentially.
Yeah. Nice. But if they're going to scale, let's say in the next 2 years you guys hire 1,000 people, you think you'll still be bringing everyone to London?
I think you probably reach critical mass in market where you don't need to. So I think, when we hit, say there's 100 people in Australia, I don't think we'd probably need to, because the culture's there and there's enough of the business, and there's probably some of the support functions that they rely on the UK for would there be in country as well. I think for certain roles we would, but probably not for everyone at that stage.
Got it.
The same as for certain roles, we fly them over for interviews as well. When we hired our Australian sort of ANZ GM, we had 3-4 people over to the UK for face-to-face interviews and present case studies, etc. Because it's just really important they understand who we are, as much as we understand who they are at that interview and onboarding process.
Got it. Forecasting. Are you guys responsible for creating the forecast? What do you work? So You take the data from Salesforce?
Well, I suppose it depends. If we're talking so as a business, we typically operate quarterly. I run a weekly forecast meeting on a Thursday morning.
That you run with all the sales managers?
Yeah, so we have 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning. We have the CRO, we have the GMs and the sort of key sales leaders in a room. Well, we'll go through the forecast. We'll talk about what's their commit, what's their best case, but actually more importantly for us, what's their gut feel? Where do they realistically think they're going to land?
Yeah.
And we will sort of do a key deal review and look at what's making it up, deliver a level of confidence. And we do that on a weekly basis.
Cool.
But if we're talking sort of more longer term, if we're talking our 2020 forecasts and projections from now, that's run entirely within sales operations in collaboration with finance. So they'll do sort of a top-down view, we'll do a bottoms-up view, and hopefully we'll meet in the middle. Yeah. And that's utilising Salesforce data plus understanding the vision and strategy for next year.
And that's what you were doing. You're doing it.
Yeah, we're sort of in that process as we speak.
Cool. And are you chairing that Thursday morning meeting personally?
Yeah. But the collaboration between myself and the Chief Revenue Officer. But if he's not around, it still goes on, and I chair sort of independently. For me, I take more of an interest in the numbers. He takes more of an interest in the big deals that we're going to close that week, just so that he can scribble those names down and ensure he holds the GMs to account for closing them.
Yeah, so we'll call them up. Yeah, Wednesday being like, is it closed?
Exactly, especially when we're in we've got 3 days left this quarter. Before we hit Q4 and close the year. So for us, that's really important.
So if there's some big, well, maybe you shouldn't say, but there's probably it could be a stressful time right now for the Chief Revenue Officer.
It's definitely a stressful time for him and the GMs at the moment. It always is.
That's good to know. Yeah. And not stressful for you? Less so.
I think it's a different kind of stress. Actually, this time of year is probably for me the most stressful time of year. Once we hit Q4, because it's about getting ready for the year. It's what are we doing? What's our plans? What's our roadmap? Quota, compensation, territory or sort of, account allocation, everything, so we're in the busy period for us, which is always dependent on the budget being signed off. But the end of the quarter for certain people in my team is stressful and busy, especially if you're sort of the deal desk representative, you're potentially there as a gatekeeper on deals and ensuring that they're going through, chasing legal up and making sure it happens.
And now metrics. So you've been in the sales ops game for like 7 years. What is a sales-related metric that you think is the coolest?
I think my number one go-to at the moment is my pipeline waterfall.
What is that?
I look at my entire pipeline and what's happening to it, so I can see what pipeline I started the quarter with.
For everybody?
Yeah, for everybody. I can drill down to a person, but, do a vertical person, country, no matter what. But essentially I look at where did we start the quarter? What have we added in the quarter? I think opportunities that were in quarter, what have we expanded them by? So are we growing our opportunities from qualification as we progress them through? We then look at sort of stuff that we've brought in from a forward quarter and we brought it in early into this quarter. And then look at the flip side of that, what's gone out of the quarter? What have we closed lost? What have we closed won? What have we shrunk and what have we pushed out to another quarter? And then where are we projecting our pipeline lands? Because our pipeline's everything. Without it, we've not got anything to close. So we keep a really close eye on that to really understand what's going on. And we can then readdress the focus of our SDR, MDR, marketing function. And, at the moment, we're running sort of a spiff with our AEs as well in terms of generating their own pipeline to really set us up for the big growth numbers we need to hit in 2020.
So you're telling your AEs that actually you're going to get more commission if you go and do your own thing?
Yeah, I don't think you can just sit there these days and wait for a lead to come to you. It'd be amazing if you could. Yeah. There's not many companies that generate enough leads to sustain the growth. Now, we could grow without having to self-generate, but you're only going to earn more money. You're going to hit your numbers and you can continue to grow if you do it as well yourself. Yeah, nice.
Now, that sounds really good, but I'm not sure if it was a metric.
Okay.
Being harsh.
Yeah, I think, in terms of metrics that we look at most of the standard stuff, right? But I think our go-to at the moment is our lead development function. Again, it comes down to pipeline. Is what are they doing? And probably the number one hygiene metric at the moment is when we have the handover period from an SDR to an AE, ensuring that the AE picks it up and responds to that really, really quickly.
So you're looking at the time.
Yeah, so we have so we come in, we hand an SQL over to an AE.
Yeah.
they then have the decision because it's their pipeline. So they decide whether I accept this as an opportunity or not.
Yeah.
Because, once it's in their pipeline, there's only two outcomes, it's won or lost. I'm not having them disqualify and say, I was given a rubbish lead.
Yeah.
So it's won or lost. So what you find is the SDR or MDR wants them to convert it there and then, because they get paid commission on that.
But the conversion to opportunities.
They get paid commission on the number of opportunities created
from them.
From their SQLs. Yeah. And we would expect that 90% of their SQLs to be accepted. But if it's the end of the month and the A's closing deals, the MDR or SDR wants it converted now, but the A's not worried about that. He's got 3 days to close all of his deals. So we really keep an eye on that. And I'm probably bugging all of the A's on Chatter at the moment in Salesforce about what's going on with this one. Can you convert it? Because I'm getting it from both sides.
Yeah, the SDR are coming to you being like, Jamie, haven't converted this.
And, we all know deals slip, right? So that time's an important metric, no matter what stage of the journey, to ensure we book it and bill it in quarter. We don't want them slipping out, especially slipping into the next year. That could be make or break for the year's numbers, essentially.
Nice. And final question, who has taught you the most in sales operations?
It's a tough one. I think I ended up in sales ops because of one guy, a guy called Ian Leonard at RS Components, where he sort of sold sales ops to me, and at times I've hated him for it, and at times I've loved him for it. But I think the person that's probably taught me the most is a guy called Simon McIver at Xero at New Zealand, because he's the one person, he knew everything. No matter what the number, the process, the metric, the text, he just knew it off the top of his head, He was a genius when it came to sort of the whole operational world of a commercial business. And he was tough, right? But he kept you on your toes, and he forced you to think about things differently. He forced you to look at things you'd never even looked at before. And I think as a result of working with him, I learned a huge amount. And he was the guy sat in New Zealand next to our CFO and CEO that pulled together all of the sales operations functions globally.
What's his name?
Simon McIver.
Simon. Simon. Let me tell you what I particularly liked about that. I think this might be the best answer to the question I asked about getting buy-in. And you completely blew away everyone's answer, because you were like, actually, the best thing to do is hire the right people. And that's super interesting. And I think that's a really, really good answer. I like that when I asked you about influencing people as well, I start with why. And you quoted, this is not really a sales off thing, but the fact that you quoted a value from the company is testament to the culture, I guess, and the values of GoCardless. So I think that's really good. And then your onboarding, these are all really simple things, but your onboarding about bringing people over is, I think, also really, really, really important. That definitely has a massive impact. Yeah, it's huge for us. I just to link to your values, I think as a company, I've worked for companies where every corridor you walk down, there's a value poster on the wall. You get a mug every year with a new value on it. We don't have any of that. There's one place to find our values, and that's on our internal website, essentially. But every person that starts has a 45-minute values interview with 2 random people from the business. That's such a good idea.
And you could get a strong yes from the hiring manager that you can technically do the job, but if it's a no values, you don't get the job.
How many values are there?
We have 4 values, essentially. And they're really simple, So it starts with why, act with integrity, be humble, and now you've completely thrown me on the 4th one. But they're really, they're just really simple values that, everyone has to, sort of hold themselves accountable to. And, we're in performance review time at the moment. Everyone's got to have their performance review done by Friday. There's 2 elements. It's how have you done in your job, and how have you done against the values.
Nice.
And both of those are compared in the sort of managing sort of calibration sessions and looking at how people are actually doing.
Nice. Well, there's a little startup lesson, business lesson. Simon, thank you. That was incredible. Many, many insights. I'm sure that's very valuable for the audience.
Thanks for having me. It's really good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.